showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome to the I Am Salt Lake podcast. This is episode 63. My name is Chris Hollifield. IamSaltLake.com is the website for the podcast where you can find everything podcast related. Got all the contact information. You can download all of the previous episodes right there online. Also links for iTunes, Stitcher Radio. Connect with me. Drop me an email. Call me up on the voicemail. Tell me what you've been up to. If you want to be a guest on the show, let me know. I'd love to bring you on. A lot of really great stuff going on this summer. I want to tell you about the guest on this episode. Kade from Damn Son Music came into the studios here and we talked, we chatted, found out about Damn Son Music, the label, the artists, what it's up to. And we also got into a little conversation about some good places to eat down in Utah County. I mean, what can I say? It's always fun to find out about the people that make the city tick, make me proud to call Salt Lake City home. Really great episode. Stay tuned for after the episode when I'm going to talk about a couple upcoming photo walks that you're going to want to make sure you're part of. I will talk about those after the conversation with Kade. Other than that, connect with the website. A lot of really, really great stuff going on with the podcast. Make sure you're following me on Facebook and Twitter, just facebook.com/IamSaltLake, and then Twitter @IamSaltLake. I'm going to jump right now into that conversation with Kade from Damn Son. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Thank you for listening to another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
I'm Kade. I'm part owner. The other owner his name is Omar. He's in California right now doing a bunch of business stuff. He goes by, he's a DJ. He's actually a somewhat established DJ in the area. His name's Tom Servo. And he spun at a bunch of different clubs around and he kind of got the ball rolling. He had an idea to start a record label and he approached me about managing me because I just had a underground music career kind of brewing. And as he asked me about helping out the website and stuff and managing me, I just kind of eased my way into becoming a co-owner of the label as well. And then we've just partnered up and it was about a year ago. I think September last year is when he came to me and we got the website up in a couple of weeks. And then it's just been a crazy ride since.
Not even around a year yet. And I mean, tell a little bit about the label for people listening, like what kind of music, what it's all about.
I would say it's electronic music. A lot of people tend to hear the word electronic and just lump it into EDM, okay, which is a sprawling genre. There's so many subgenres in EDM, and not all of EDM is necessarily classified as dance music. Even electronic dance music is the label. I think we only have a handful of producers that make what I would call EDM for the club, and then we get kids on the outskirts, brain music and eclectic stuff. And our philosophy kind of came in, as I'm sure you've come across with running the podcast. In the beginning, when we had the idea, everyone was like, "Oh, you're going to start a record label, huh?" Yeah.
There's a million of those out there.
There's a million. Good luck with that. Cool.
Yeah.
Have fun living the dream. It's just a lot of condescending attitudes. And I didn't even tell my family. I have yet to really even tell my family what I've been doing just because
you don't want them to shoot it down.
They're not going to understand.
Keep your dream alive.
Yeah, they think that it's some, immature childhood fantasy. There's no money in it. And it's just, refusing to grow up or whatever. And then a lot of people just understand that the nature, the numbers are, there's a lot of people and it's hard to make it. And so there was a lot of people who didn't really support us among our friends. We just kept trucking away. And I remember we were the first promoting group to really support us was a kid named Taryn. He runs Basic Thursdays, the Vibe Tribe. He does Friday nights at Cicero's. He's kind of got his hands in everything.
Yeah.
He's kind of, I don't really know where he sits, if he's mid-level, top-level promoter. I just know he's a promoter. And he's kind of connected with a lot of different people.
Like a music promoter.
Yeah. So he does Thursday nights currently at the hotel called Basic Thursdays. He runs a little crew called Vibe Tribe. I don't know. There's a DJ on there named Pookie who's really, really cool. And he's been in the game for a long time and is constantly opening for big acts. And you'd never know that he's as successful as he is. Really humble guy. And they were kind of the first people to support us, and they brought us out, and I played a show there. And I remember talking to Omar, my partner, and we kind of realized Damson wanted to be the positive influence that people don't get. Because your podcast is, people in Salt Lake are doing amazing things, a lot of artistic things, and a lot of people aren't getting support. We all know anytime you want to pursue something that's outside of the norm or outside of the 9 to 5, you're going to get a lot of people who have a negative reaction to that.
Absolutely.
And we wanted to be the opposite. We're the guys that we don't care if you have 1 follower on SoundCloud or 10,000 followers. We'll listen and we'll support. We'll like. We're never going to be too cool for anyone. We're never going to, and it's hard because the bigger we get, the busier we are.
And it's hard to respond to everybody.
And it's really, really hard. But like, I really, really do. Every email I get, every time someone submits, I sit down and I listen to it. And if it gets too much, I plan on having people help me do that. But that's kind of our motto, is we just want to support people in doing what they love. So yeah, we're a label, but we're starting to branch out, and we're supporting rollerblading. We're supporting filmmakers. We're doing interviews with people. We just want to be like a propulsion, like exposure machine for people who are just out there hustling and working hard, and we want to be the one, the first time I got blogged about, the first time someone was stoked on my music, I'll never forget. I mean, it was such a motivation builder, and it helped.
Now your music, you make music as well?
Yeah,
then? Okay.
So I forgot to, I run the label with Omar, and I'm also a musician on the label. So I got my hands in 2 pieces of the pie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. As well as Omar makes music for the label too.
Yeah, he's getting into producing. He's a turntablist. He's
See, I don't know all the terminology. It's not really my scene, really, but I'm down to learn about it,
Yeah. He's a DJ, but there's a lot of DJs, and I have no snobby attitude against how you DJ or the equipment you use. The method he uses is straight vinyl, not quite as like, the guys that actually switch out records. Yeah. He's not like that. There's a guy out of Utah County, Chew on Wax. He does that. There's very few people left that do that, but
that use original vinyl.
Like they're actually taking the records and sweeping. They bring all their crates with them, and they have all their records. He uses vinyl, but he uses Serato, so he can use all his music on his computer, but he uses real vinyl and needles.
Do most just use computers nowadays?
It's hit and miss. Depends. I mean, I don't really DJ, but when I play live, I use controllers.
Controllers.
Like I use a APC 40, basically a mixer with a bunch of buttons on them.
Okay.
And you push the buttons. But I don't know how to DJ. I don't play other people's music. That's hard. It's harder than people think, being able to just on the fly change and react to a crowd and read the crowd.
Yeah.
I'm lucky people come to see me, so I can just preset what I want to play, and I get to choose what I play.
Yeah, yeah.
And he does. It's pretty amazing. He can go for hours. If they say, we want you to play for 45 minutes, okay. We need you to play for another 2 hours.
And who's it? Chew guy or Chew?
Chew can do that. Or my partner Omar does it as well. And
okay.
He can he mixes. He can mix all day long, and he genre hops. He jumps all around, and his transitions are really good. And so he's our probably premier DJ on the label. We have a couple other kids that produce and can DJ at the same time, and then we have a lot of people like me who just produce. We don't know how to DJ, but we can sit in our basement and make beats.
Well, that's a skill, man. It's talk about so some of the people on the label, the artists, the DJs. How many people you got about? And they're all on the website. I was peeking around on the website, and it looks like there's quite a few.
There's one that's not. We just signed a kid in Colorado. His name's Symbolic. He makes like really awesome 90s hip hop beats. Yeah, but kind of a fresh twist to it. You won't find him on. We're still working on integrating him to the whole system, but everyone else is on there. We have Dakai. He was one of the first ones we picked up. He makes sort of like, I don't know if you listen to progressive music in the 90s, like Tool. Oh, yeah. Kind of on the darker side. He makes that, but electronic. So longer song times, really intricate, like polyrhythms. Sometimes, he delves into dubstep a little bit with some modulated bass, but not anything over the top. And he's pretty unique. And then we picked up a friend of his. His name's Drix, and he's like core. I would say he's pretty close to core dubstep. Really classic sounds, really classic bass sounds, but then he has some interesting like reggae overtones to it. Kind of has a unique twist. And then we have a kid named Elevator. He DJs as well, and he just makes brain music, apparat, Daedalus type of stuff. Really interesting use of samples. Like he went out and he works at a bike shop and recorded all these different sounds, like chains of bikes and bikes moving and pedals and tools. And then
See, and I find that stuff fascinating.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
and then he goes out and makes beats out of all that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we have a kid out of Ogden named Wolfkin. And he's the kid that makes your ass shake. Like he makes the booty bumping music in the club. Like he make a lot of trap, a lot of just like big club sounds.
Uh-huh.
And he can DJ as well. And like when he gets out, he just gets everyone sweaty. And he's half Irish, half Mexican. He's got this huge beard, and he's just a blast to hang out with. We're really stoked to have him. Then we picked up a kid named Gazia. His name's Aaron. He's out of Layton, and he makes future bass, garage, ambient trap. He's so far ahead of his time. There is no market for him in Salt Lake. I mean, we just push him online. We're working on trying to get a scene here for that in Salt Lake. It's just, it doesn't exist.
Why don't you think it exists? Just
part of it is per capita. I mean, we have a lot of talent, but we do just have less people.
Yeah,
in a lot of these bigger cities. And so the people who are into that niche is just, there's less of them. There's not enough of them to support a scene. There's people here that like that stuff, but per capita wise, there's not as many. A club wants to make money, and they need to be profitable. And a night based around that type of music, if you're going to get 10 kids there, it's not that the music's bad. It's just, there's got to be money in it to sustain it. And right now, I don't think that scene is really strong here, at least as far as I know. I mean, like I said, I don't know everything, and we're kind of an online label, but I haven't seen a strong scene in that area. And there's another kid on our label called Sion. I think that's how you say it. I don't even really know how to say it. Xian.
okay.
And he's from California. He has another alias called Magistry, which is really well established. He's had stuff on Beatport, top-selling Beatport, and kind of similar music. Really down-tempo, chill, ambient, future-sounding. So those two are kind of like on that end of the spectrum. And then I'm trying to think. We talked about Symbolic. He's our hip-hop guy. And then I make sort of break beats, hip-hop, kind of on the chiller side.
Stuff you could break dance to a little bit and kind of that kind of stuff.
Generally mid-tempo, like 88 BPM to 98, or halftime at 125 and 130. And I'm trying to visualize the website in my mind. I'm sure I'm forgetting something.
No, and people, they can go onto the website too if you are missing any. So, I mean, how have you found these people then? Or have they come to you? Do you seek them out? Or, I mean, out at a club, you'll be like, man, you blew me away, or what?
Yeah, it's both. Starting out, initially, like we talked about, there wasn't a lot of people. We had an idea, no a website, no traffic, and so it couldn't just approach really well-established musicians because we had nothing to offer them. And so I first approached our friends, and we had some people on the label that aren't on the label anymore. I think just because it's hard working with people you're really close with and friends.
Yeah.
And we, as a label, we weren't really sure on what our motto was, our end goal was. We were still kind of fleshing all that stuff out. Mm-hmm. So it was really hard for us to...
And you're probably still trying to figure it out.
We're a lot closer than we were. It was hard for us to communicate, our expectations and what we expect of the artist because we didn't really know. And so that led to miscommunication. So we some of our friends we don't really work with anymore. We still support them. We blog about them. There's a great group out of Salt Lake called Custom Model. They've been pretty quietly working on an EP that I know is going to be stellar. It's kind of like the guy in the basement being quiet. You don't know he's working on a masterpiece. And so that's going to be coming out really soon.
On your label?
Not on our label. We worked with them for a little while. We kind of parted ways just because it was our fault. We didn't really know. It was our first person we worked with, our first artist. They were the first people we approached, and they were super supportive, but we didn't really know what we were doing.
Yeah.
We didn't. And so we kind of burned a bridge there, but we still support him. I had another friend, Audio Treats, who's an up-and-coming hip-hop producer, makes really fresh music. He's working with Dumb Luck and like the Elm Productions crew, and he's doing a lot of great stuff. And we don't really work with him anymore just simply because him and I have been roommates and best friends, and we kind of just realized it'd be better to be friends. And
sometimes that's the best.
Sometimes it is the best.
Yeah.
But I still always shout them out. I blog about them. I spread their posts. I share their information because that's what we do. Damn son, we support people who are doing what they love.
Yeah.
So even though if they're not on our label, it's still in our mission motto to help expose them and get people to see them. After that, we started approaching people who were friends of friends. So it was more of like a business contact. I didn't know, like the Kai, I had no idea who he was. I just messaged him on SoundCloud. I just saw he was from from Salt Lake. I liked his music, and I decided to run a label. And he was stoked on it. And we worked with him probably for 2 or 3 months before I ever met him in person. We released his EP on the label and pushed it out to blogs and stuff. And I had never met him in person.
Isn't that amazing that the internet can do that?
Yeah.
I mean, just that connection, constant connection. I mean, even with our smartphones now, I mean, you don't even need to meet people anymore. You just, you can just.
It's interesting. And I make friends with these people online and going out and working with blogs and different promoters all over the United States. And you feel like you're friends with them.
I mean, you are really.
You really are. You crack jokes. You have inside jokes. You have stories you can tell. You chat all the time. And, and you've actually never hung out with them in person.
Yeah, yeah.
And a few of these people on trips out to Denver, I had a person like that. His name's Eric. He goes by DJ Baby. He was a promoter out in Denver. And he was one of the first people to really support us, the label, and my music personally. And by the time I went out and played a couple of shows in Denver and met him in person, when we met, it was like we'd been friends for years.
Yeah.
There was no awkwardness. It was like, we were friends already, even though we'd never met in person. And I think the internet it's still a baby technology.
It really is.
Yeah.
Some of these Utah people, I mean, we got to get them on the podcast as well. I'd love to sit down and pick their brain a little bit and expose some of their. I mean, we have to connect with.
Let's do that,
because I find that whole I'm very unfamiliar with that scene, and so it'd be kind of interesting to bring it onto the show and let Salt Lake City people in Salt Lake that might not be familiar with that whole thing. Like, hey, it's out there. I get a lot of people, that move here that find my podcast and they're like, I'm just looking for something to do. And who knows, this might be right up their alley. So do you do events then too? Do you do like promote or like do a show, or is it just the bands, or how does that all work?
So it started out, I ended up being like the first artist that we pushed. So we ended up using me as an experiment.
Okay.
Because we kind of got to the situation where we're signing all these artists and these kids, but we don't really have a network as a label yet. We don't really know anybody. We had this great idea and all these great motivations.
But the response has been incredible, it sounds like.
The response now, but in the
beginning it wasn't.
It wasn't. And so we started saying, well, we don't want to make mistakes on these artists that we're signing. We want to keep them happy. And so we experimented with me in my artist name, because I can't get mad at myself.
And how did you experiment? Like,
so I started just hitting up people and getting on shows. My first show was at a place called Muse Music in Provo through a friend who's on the label Elevator. He put it together. It was actually a really good show.
It's a great place, by the way.
It's a fun place to play. And that was just because I had the connection for that. And then my second show was playing this, and I'm glad I didn't send an artist to this, because it was a paid gig, and I was like, I could use the money, but it was for a corn maze opening in Spanish Fork.
There you go.
It was a UVU college event, so I'm thinking there's going to be college kids there. It might be like kind of popping because kids down there have nothing to do, so they're going to go to the corn maze. So it may be kind of a cheesy location, but I was thinking that the exposure would be good.
Absolutely.
The pay is going to be good.
Absolutely.
It turned out to be like a horrible disaster. I played for like 7 12-year-olds and they just requested Cut and Eye Joe the whole time because they want to do a line dance. And like, it's something like that.
That's a great song though.
It is a great song. And I'm glad we didn't send an artist out to that, because then they'd be like, who are these guys? These guys are just posers.
It's a joke, right?
Yeah, they're not getting me shows. They're getting me these. I'm playing for 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of stuff we did.
Did you get to do the corn maze at least though?
I didn't even do the corn maze. It was freezing, and once my set was over, we just packed up and left. Just got out of there. It's a funny story now. And then we did bring out a couple of shows. We sponsored a show at Park City Live with Go-Go Biscuit and the Phantom's Revenge, 2 European artists. And we kind of learned, it was our first gig that we've done, and we did it out of our own pocket. And we had no experience putting on a show, and we learned a lot. And we learned that we should let the promoters do the promoting and us do the artists, because
well, if you try to do too much, you can't do it.
We were in over our heads, but we made a lot of great connections, and it was still worth it. And we learned some very valuable lessons. We brought out another act, a much smaller act, Jacuzzi High Dive out of Vegas, to Urban Lounge. And it was also a good show. And it turned out a lot better than the one at Park City Live. But again, we learned some lessons, and we've been shying away from bringing out acts until we kind of have a stronger network when we can support the act. We're getting there, and we've been thinking about getting some more people out in the summer. As of right now, we're not really promoting shows. Like, bringing out other artists
Yeah.
as opposed as getting our artists put on bigger shows that they can get exposed to. So,
Well, if your artists ever have shows that need to be mentioned on the podcast too, you know, I always like to even try to mention an upcoming
Yeah,
event
absolutely.
or something. You know, let's work together here. You know, that's what I say. I mean, we're a small area between Utah County to Ogden. I mean, we're all really connected in so many more ways than people realize. You know,
definitely.
and if we all work together, we can all go a long way.
Well, that's something that, you know, I've been noticing is there's so much talent here, but people, I don't know if it's because it's a little bit smaller that people view other people as threats. As we've grown really quickly and the growth has been faster than we ever expected. And I'll run into people that are either really stoked on us and want to work with us, or people I'm meeting for the first time and they're just super mean to me.
Do you think people really do look at you as a threat? Why would they look at you as a threat?
Maybe because, you know, we're taking a piece of their pie, or I'm wondering why, because there's so much talent and there's so many crews. You have like,
And everybody has a different style of way they promote themselves.
Exactly. You have the Hive. They're doing awesome stuff. You have Dirt First with Grimbley, who's probably one of the most successful electronic artists out of Salt Lake. And then you have like Taryn and the whole Vibe Tribe. You have V2, who's doing the really, really big events. They have the Overhead and the Capitol, and they're doing awesome stuff. But no one really works together. Everyone's like,
Does it bum you out when people aren't stoked?
it feels like
when they're
you know,
kind of
if I work with this person, because, you know, like with Taryn, he was the first person that was cool to us, and I got a gig at Basic Thursdays, and the right people were there, and they heard me play, and it opened a bunch of doors because he went out of his way and supported us when no one else was. But then it turns out, people view you as like, well, you know, he's part of that crew, or he's not part of that crew, or if, you know, this crew, someone you put on a show and they have beef with someone else, all of a sudden you have beef with them and you never even met him before.
What?
And, you know, and it's interesting how it's kind of like everyone's on their own little basketball team, but we really should be all one team.
We really should.
And there's so much talent here. We could put Salt Lake on the map on such a larger scale than we currently are, but no one works together.
So what got you introduced, to music were you listening to music at a young age, or, did you come from a musical family?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. Like, what, at a young age, I'm talking, like, what was one of the first CDs, or I don't know how far back you go, cassette tapes? Or...
Yeah, well, my dad was a musician, and he kind of he toured around.
What was he a musician? What
he was a piano player and a singer.
Okay.
In a bunch of rock bands, and he...
Anything worth mentioning or not really?
I think they signed some deals. I think at his biggest point, he was touring with Fleetwood Mac as an opening act.
Really? Wow, there you go.
So he was definitely on his way to making a career out of it. And then after having a kid and kind of reevaluating things, he decided to take another route and just kind of drop the music thing. But he got back into it by the time I was born. I'm the youngest of 7.
Okay.
And so I would just go down to his office and steal his cassette tapes and just rock out to him. I remember he had Primus. I remember getting Primus at really, really young. I think it was Selling the Seas of Cheese.
Oh, that's a great album.
Great album. I remember getting 311, the Grassroots album from him. And so I would steal his cassettes. He got me into like Peter Gabriel, a lot of like on the electronic side, where it wasn't EDM, but it was more electronica, a lot of Depeche Mode, a lot of 80s electronic music. I loved Duran Duran and Depeche Mode. And then I got into, I think the first CD that I purchased with my own money was Ace of Base. I saw
we all have that guilty pleasure.
It's not even guilty. I still like it. You like what you like. And then in junior high, I got really into just alternative rock. I really liked 311. I really liked Incubus and just traditional, bands, 5-6-piece bands. But I always, because of my older brother and my dad, was listening to electronic music on the side, but it wasn't really cool and I was too embarrassed to talk about it. So like 9 Inch Nails, Depeche Mode, a lot of like the industrial, like the darker side of electronica.
Yeah.
And then I got more into like Venus Hum and kind of that side of it. I got really into the Faint. Kenna put out an album called New Sacred Cow, which I still think I think it was 2003 put it out, is still fresher than anything that's come out. And he's kind of mixing electronica and rock. And then I played in a bunch of bands.
What instruments do you play?
Drums.
You do play drums.
I play piano as well.
Do you find that helps, being a drummer helps with your beats and all of that?
Absolutely.
Probably?
I played it with the kid that I mentioned earlier, Audio Treats, a really good friend of mine. We had a kind of a group together. We lived together for 2 years, probably made 200 songs, never played a single show. We just liked brewing up screwing up music. We never really did anything with it. And then after doing that and kind of getting frustrated with playing with other people and being in a group, and I've even joked with Polytype with this, is sometimes it feels like you have 3 or 4 wives.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's frustrating.
Yeah, and you have all these different egos, and sometimes people aren't open about what they're really feeling, and they're passive aggressive, and when you're not around, they talk to the other band members, and when you're not around, you talk about them, and no one's ever like communicating, and it's really hard. That's why it's hard to be successful as a band. You've really got to have a good jive together and a good working relationship. And I never really found that. Out of frustration, I just started making beats on my own.
And doing solo stuff.
And doing the solo stuff. And it just turned into what it is now.
You just fell in love with it and you were just like, let's go with this.
You know, in my first EP, I made like 15 songs and just put out on the internet. Didn't even tell anyone. I didn't want anyone to know. I was like, I was embarrassed, and it wasn't that great of stuff, but I was interested to see if I just put it on the internet, who would come across it. I didn't get a ton of response, like massive numbers, but I would just get trickled messages, like 3 or 4 a week from some kid in Greece or some kid in St. Louis or, that had come across it and really enjoyed it. And that's when my friend Omar, the other owner, approached me about being a manager. And like,
so how did you guys meet then?
We worked together. We did door-to-door sales.
Okay, door-to-door sales.
Door-to-door sales.
Like magazine sales or what?
Alarms. We were those guys.
Oh wow! So like here in Utah, or did you go out of state?
We met in Boston.
Okay.
We were both selling alarms in Boston, and he was just starting to learn how to DJ. And this was 06, 07.
Okay.
And it's before the DJ bubble had gotten really big and burst. And we had a couple of friends who were still in the game. There's a DJ named Jeff Larson, Hot Noise, and he was like way ahead of his game. And he was playing all sorts of clubs. And Omar was like really good friends with him. And I knew both of them. They grew up in the same county as me, and I knew who they were, but I wasn't friends with them. Mm-hmm. So when I met him in Boston, and we were like, hey, we're both working at the same place. We're from the same hometown. We kind of know each other. He really looked up to Hot Noise because he's a really accomplished turntablist. He's a great DJ. He's been hustling for years. He's got tons of connections. Super awesome dude. And so Omar was like, I want to learn how to DJ. And at that time, I was just barely learning how to make beats on my own, and he was learning how to DJ on his own. And he would just kind of sit at nights and just practice, and he had no idea what he was doing, and he just kept at it and kept at it, and I kept at it and kept at it, and then we kept working together every summer selling alarms.
And you guys just hit it up. Now, where did you grow up in Utah County then?
Utah County. I grew up in Orem.
You grew up in Orem?
Yeah. And he grew up in Spanish Fork.
Wow. That area's changed a lot over the last, I moved there from California when I was like 16. So that was almost 20 years ago, and I mean, I've seen that area just change. I mean, it's still a different world down there compared to Salt Lake, but it is a different world. It's changing. What are some, I mean, so have you living here as long as you have? I mean, what are some of your favorite things about living in the area? I will preface this by saying Utah, it's popular to complain about Utah. Yeah, well, it is. And that's even what I'm trying to smash with this podcast. I mean, there are things you can complain about, but I will say I've lived extended periods of times in California, Boston, St. Louis, Memphis, Texas, Chicago. So you've experienced a lot of places. Some of the stuff that you can complain about is going to be prevalent in every city. Yeah. It's just complaining about human nature. And so I don't think it really pertains to Utah. Obviously, a lot of people complain about like the religious influence here. But you have that anywhere. There's always a religion that dominates an area. I was knocking in areas in Chicago where everyone was Jewish. Yeah. You know? And it's just, so I think those things, I mean, you can deal with them. And there are some legitimate things that people complain about that should be changed. But they so do not outweigh the positives, which are like living in Utah County, I am at the most 2 hours away from any type of outdoor experience I want. I can go down south and get the Zions and the Red Rocks and Moab. I can go up north and hit Big Cottonwood Canyon in the skiing or biking in the summer. There's canyons everywhere. There's camping everywhere. There's lakes everywhere to go boating. If you're into any of that stuff, you're pretty outdoorsy. You get all 4 seasons, so you get to, you get to experience everything. And then on the talent side, even in Provo and in Salt Lake, there is an incredible amount of people. That's why this podcast is here. I go out to these other big cities and there's core scenes. Yeah. But most people, you don't have as many people like, I guess, developing talents, it seems like. I don't really know what that is, and we just have like a seemingly higher ratio of people doing stuff, like starting brands, clothing companies, musicians. So a lot of visual creative people. Creative people. I don't know.
and this may be because I'm biased and I didn't really have a chance to like necessarily like really get down to the nitty gritty granular level on these other big cities that I was living in. But it just seems like there's just so many creative people. Talent is just untapped.
What do you think? What do you think the biggest misconception about?
That everyone's Mormon.
Yeah, because it's not true.
It's not true. I mean, what is it in Salt Lake that there's 30%? I mean, that's still really high for any.
And I would even probably beg to differ there. You know what I mean? As far as active people that actually, you know, are you know, your religion's your religion.
Well, and I think the biggest misconception is that everyone's Mormon and that all of those Mormons are the type of Mormons that people like to complain about.
Yeah. I mean,
Most of them are just,
what's the difference? You know, Mormon, Catholic, Jewish, whatever. It's what you believe.
Most people think everyone's Mormon and they're the extreme version of that religion.
Yeah.
Most people are just normal people. You wouldn't even guess necessarily what religion they subscribe to just by hanging out with them. And I think that's the case. I mean, you're going to have extreme people or really devout people that are like out. They like to wear their religion on their sleeve, whether it be any religion at all. But I think the misconception is that if you go to Utah, you're just gonna like deal with all these like
everybody's
extreme,
gonna have 7 wives.
Yeah, you're gonna deal with all these extreme religious people when
Yeah.
they're actually a very small minority, and we're just like any other city. We're just a bunch of people just going through life trying to get by.
So living in Utah County, have you ever eaten at that Mountain West burrito place?
Oh, that place.
Isn't that great? I love
I'm
it.
gonna be that hipster guy that was like I liked it before everyone else did.
Yeah. No, that place is great though.
It is great. I worked at a deli in Orem called Ernie's Sports Deli.
Okay.
It's like Gandolfo's, but 1,000 times better.
I'm sure. Yeah, a local place, right? Yeah.
And there's only one of them. The owner is really good friends with the owner of Mountain West Burrito.
Oh my gosh.
And
best
so I got
burritos.
lucky and just kind of like got turned on to that place in very like soon after their inception.
Yeah.
Just because of my social network. I've spent a retarded amounts of money at that restaurant because it's just so.
Now they have a couple locations now, right? Don't they? Because I mean, I remember the first time I found it. It was an old gas station on the corner there, like 1600.
It was a gas station where like one half's a smoke shop, one half's the burrito shop.
Well, yeah. Now it is, which I think is great. You get a burrito and a bong. You know, it's like what's up? What else do you need?
That's a pretty good combo.
Yeah. So my mom doesn't live too far from there, and so one time we were down there. You know, I can't remember if it said does it say Mountain West? I think it does say Mountain West Burrito. It's not
West Burrito.
Yeah, not just Mountain West. So we're like, oh, let's go in there and get a burrito. And I mean, the vibe and it was just like, this is awesome. We need one of these in Salt Lake. You know what I mean?
I think he's done so well.
Yeah.
And that place grew so fast. I wouldn't be surprised if he opens up one in Salt Lake.
And I thought he opened up another location, like even an American Fork or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. You know, which is I'd drive down there for a burrito. You know what I mean? Any other favorite places you like to eat down there? You know, I always like to talk about places to eat, especially local places, just because, again, back to when I'm just trying to, you know, promote local stuff. So I don't get down to Utah County as much as I should, you know, but if I was to go down there, where do you like to eat down that way?
I would definitely hit up Ernie's. It's a little sandwich shop.
Where's that at?
Center Street in Orem, right across from Target. There's a dessert place on State Street in Orem called The Chocolate. I don't necessarily love it. It's kind of more of like a single date night, a girl's place. It's like they took this house, like just an old house that was built in probably the 20s or 30s.
Yeah.
And they just revamped it into this little dessert restaurant. You only get desserts, cookies, cakes, cupcakes.
So a guy can't go there by himself. You're saying,
pretty much.
You're saying you kind of.
It'd be a little awkward to just show up by yourself with
Why?
a bunch of couples and girls there, but
Come on, I like cookies.
but they do really, really well. I mean, there's so many because of BYU and UVU. So many like young single people there. They slay it, and it's really good. There's a Peruvian place right next to the University Mall called La Carreta. It's Peruvian food. It's not. You know, it's I guess Southern American food, but it's not Mexican. It's not like anything else I've ever had. I don't know how to explain it. It's Peruvian and it's really good.
I have to check that out next time I'm down there. So besides like running the label and doing music, you did mention outdoor. You're a pretty outdoorsy guy. I mean, or what other hobbies and interests do you?
Right now, it's just the label and music. That's all I have time for. But,
And do you work a full-time job on top of this?
I do.
Or yeah, so you stay pretty busy.
We're kind of in that transition period where, you know, I could probably maybe at some point in the near future switch and do music full time. I'm going to try to do both as long as I can and just scrounge as much money as I can. Because if I can get away with both and make money from both sources,
why not?
Then you might as well. You know, I'll go as long as I can. And at the point where I feel like the label and the music is not getting the attention it's deserving, then I'll probably transition out of my full-time job. I like to snowboard a lot. I mean, I'm from Utah. That's what you do. the winter.
Shoot, I lived here a long time, and I've only been snowboarding probably as many fingers as I have on one hand. You know what I mean?
Well, we got to change that. I mean, if you don't snowboard, the winters can be pretty unbearable.
That's probably why I hate wintertime here.
Well, and you're from California.
Yeah. Well,
I did a lot of snowboarding. My dad was really into canyoneering and hiking, so I did a lot of like rappelling, canyoneering. My dad was actually he would map out underground caves. That was like his side job. So they would send him out to and he'd go camping underground for like 4 days. Like intense. Like they'd be like pooping in bags because they can't leave it in there, and like carrying all their waste with them and being underground for 5 days straight. And he would map, like he can do this like type of like 3D mapping on a 2D map.
Yeah.
It's cartonography, whatever.
So he would go underground and camp out. Yeah, underground and not come out for days.
And map them. And so as a result,
I'd get claustrophobic.
And now he'd take me with him. That was like a really big hobby of his. So growing up, I did a lot of caving, and my dad was an outdoorsy guy. But now that I'm older and have a day job and I'm running this, I just, with my free time, if I'm not doing music in the label, I'm hanging out with my wife, which generally is watching movies.
Is she pretty supportive of you doing what you're doing?
She lets me get away with murder as far as how much attention I give her.
Yeah.
Because she understands, she's seen the progress that we've made in the last year. And she sees the progress that individually my music has made, and she's excited by it, and she knows how much effort it takes to upkeep it and to continue to grow it. And so we've definitely worked out a way where I can come home and I can usually just go straight from work, straight onto the computer and start pushing the label and working on my music and orchestrating all the different projects we have going on. And she's really, really, she's understanding about it. I think very rarely will she just be like, I need attention. You need to stop what you're doing.
Well, it's tough to find a supportive wife, and if you find it, man, hold on to that. You know what I'm saying? It's but at the same time, support what they're doing as well. I think is really important. What do you think the biggest, like, as the music industry as a whole, like, and I'm talking the big major label, what is something you would change about the music industry? What do you think the biggest problem is? Or is that kind of a tough question?
Big corporations and parent companies, I think the reason why the music industry, the bottom fell out is because they were unwilling to adapt to the changes that everyone saw coming.
Yeah.
And there were some people, everyone quotes when Radiohead put out In Rainbows at Name Your Price.
That blew people away.
That was just unheard of. But the truth is, there was a lot of mid to lower people that had been doing that for years before them.
True.
But they were the first major label, like massive artists to take that route. And I think the labels are still, with all the DRM, they've just been going about adapting the wrong way, which unfortunately has cost a lot of people jobs. They're dying.
Yeah.
I don't think that had to have been the case. But then you have new stuff popping up. Beatport's great. SoundCloud, I think, is like the most amazing service because it's more underground than the underground. I can hop on SoundCloud and I can find some music that I absolutely love on some kid who made it in his basement and no one even knows who he is. And I can blog about him and he'll be so happy about it because it just connects. It's like Facebook for musicians.
Yeah.
It's a great platform. And I think because of the industry kind of changing and dying, major labels dying, I think it also cultivated an environment where people started creating these new, like, Web 2.0 services. And I think it's great for the musician. I think there's less millionaires that are musicians, but there's more people paying the bills doing music.
Well, and that's the most important part. I think, if I could make enough money, say, doing this podcast that I could pay all my bills, why not do it?
Exactly.
Because that's where my heart is.
Yeah.
I sell myself short every day by working a job that I don't really like, but I got to pay the bills.
Yep.
I don't need to be a millionaire. Keep a roof over my head and food in my fridge.
And I think the greatest thing about all this change is that it used to be the doors that you had to open or the hurdles that you had to overcome to get involved in the music scene where you had to know people and you had to have money because, say this is the 80s, the only way to get stuff heard is by major distribution channels. And the only way to get your stuff recorded is in a studio that costs money. There was just a lot of obstacles for the everyday person that you had to grind and grind. And now with technology, you can go buy a MIDI controller and a mixer, and you can make beats for a really low price and you can make them sound really good and compete with people with better gear. And then you can hop on the internet, and if you have the time, you can use Facebook, you can use blogs, you can use email, and you can push yourself without like all those different individual steps have been taken out. And really the only person stopping you from being successful is you, because the internet is an avenue that if you're willing to put the work in,
it's there for
you don't have
you.
to depend on
Yeah,
anyone else.
Yeah.
You can depend on yourself. And it's nice to have the help of other people, but really when it comes down to it, all the tools are now in the everyday man's hand, and he can go out. If it's anything creative, whether it's music, video, anything, you can go out, and if you use the internet wisely and you hustle, you can make it.
Yeah.
You don't even need to go to school. I mean, I have a 4-year degree in audio engineering at UVU, and I learned more watching tutorials and blog posts on YouTube than I ever did in school.
But it's that piece of paper that everybody feels they
and,
need, you know?
And there are some things I learned in school that I probably wouldn't have learned elsewhere, getting my hands on some of the gear and some of the connections that I made. And now, like, when I want to up my game, there's endless amounts. I don't even have time to watch all the tutorials that are out there.
Yeah.
It's just, I have to prioritize, like, what do I really want to learn? What's most beneficial? And then I only have an hour today to learn. So and it's just the information out there and the help out there is endless. I think that's great. It gives me, I would never have ever tried to start a label or be a musician had the internet wasn't around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if it's 1995, I would just play drums for fun and I would pursue something else.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have any hope that I could actually be successful.
So what is something now that you know that maybe you wish you knew in the beginning? Or probably a ton of stuff, huh?
Yeah, I would say the most important thing is like the Nike, just do it.
Yeah.
I spent 2 years making beats with a friend, and we were so concerned with so many things that weren't important. That we never actually went anywhere. And I read an article the other day that a friend forwarded to me that was with music, in the way quantity is more important than quality. One, if you put something out, it's there forever. But most kids, if it's not something they're going to fall in love with, they're going to forget about you a day later. Everyone has ADD. There's too much out there. And so this article basically said just to put stuff out consistently, and the more you put out, the better you'll be at finishing and the better the quality will go, because the only way that you're going to get good at putting out a whole package, song or an arrangement or mixed and mastered and actually going out and promoting it. The only way to get good at that stuff is to practice it. And the only way to practice it is to actually go do it. There's no safe environment of a fake internet or a controlled world where you can go out and practice promoting your stuff or practice. You just have to go out there and do it, and you can't worry. Like, there's going to be people who don't like your music. I mean, there's people that I send, I probably email 80 blogs, maybe 4 of them get back to me. And I can't take it personally. I can't be like, you don't like my music. You'll end up dying.
But you had to learn that. I mean, at first, you were probably like, oh, wow, and you maybe took it a little more personally.
And it was disheartening. It was like, oh, man, I emailed all these people and no one responded to me, or I show these people my music. And it's funny to see how a lot of it has nothing to do with your music. When I first started, I would show people my music and they would just be like, oh, that Kade kid, he makes beats, whatever.
Yeah.
And then just recently I played a really, really awesome show where I got lucky. I opened for my idol. His name's the Polish Ambassador. He's kind of the reason I started making beats on my own. When I was hanging out with Omar when we were selling alarms, he showed me this record called Future Sex Computers. And I was like, I want to make music like that. I love that. And that's when I started making beats. So fast forward 2 years later, he comes to Salt Lake and I get to open for him. And I'm just like ecstatic. It was
like a dream come true.
It was a dream come true. And another thing I learned is when those people, I make similar music. So the crowd there, even though none of them knew who I was, they liked that type of music and they went wild. And it was interesting to see it. Not everyone's going to like your music, but when the right people hear it, they're going to like it. And it was nuts. And after that, people started treating me a lot different. People who didn't take me seriously are now my really good friend. And it's not so much that they didn't like my music. They never gave it an honest chance until they saw other people getting down to it and having some sort of success. Then they'll actually, when you're local, sometimes people it's a local person. They don't really listen to it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
They don't really view it as if a friend's like, check out this guy, is really cool, he's been blowing up. When someone you respect says, check out this group, and you respect that person's opinion, you already automatically are sort of deciding you're going to like it. You're going to give it a chance because your peers like it. and you're gonna give it. I do the same thing. Sometimes someone will say, "I really like this guy," and I don't like it at first, but I sit and listen to it over and over again because I want to hear what they're hearing. I want to hear why people like this music so much.
That's good advice. I like that.
And sometimes I just, after I try, I'm like, I just don't like it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, you know what? I didn't hear it at first, but now I'm really digging it. It grew on me. And when you're local and you're nobody and no one, and you don't have any kind of social backing or social proof, or it's just the way humans think, they're not going to really give it an honest listen.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of something that I learned is as you keep hustling and putting yourself out there and you have more and more success, people that maybe didn't like it in the beginning, you'll find that they'll end up liking it because they'll actually listen to it. And so you can't always take it personal. And then there are going to be people who just say like, that's not my cup of tea, but that's okay because that's not who you're targeting then.
And then you got 1,000 more people that it is their cup of tea,
And you can never please anyone. In fact, I think the quote goes something along the lines of, if you're pleasing everyone, you're doing something wrong. And that's something that I've had to slowly learn over time. And making music is such a personal thing that you take it personal in the beginning because when you listen to it, you hear the emotions that you had at the time. You remember, man, when I made that song, I was going through this, and I can hear it in the music.
Yeah.
I can hear what I was thinking about. I can hear what I was struggling with. And so when people go, it's not my cup of tea, in the beginning, it feels like, you're not my cup of tea. And I think that's a lot of artists deal with that.
Yeah.
And you got to learn that you can't let that get to you.
Absolutely. So what's in store for Damn Son? What do you got coming up? You got anything in the next little while, next year? Where do you see the label in another year?
We're gonna keep focusing on just building the brand and the exposure. It's hard to make a lot of moves when you contact promoters or festivals and try to get your guys on stuff, and they say, well, how many likes do they have? How many plays do they have?
Is that important? Like how many likes somebody has on Facebook or something?
Because and it makes sense if let's say you're a guy out in Chicago and I email you and say, you're putting all this money and you're over this festival and I want you to book my artist and I want you to pay for him to fly out there and I want you to pay him to play. And then you hop on and he's like got 50 likes on Facebook and no plays and no one listens to him.
Yeah.
You're not going to feel confident that it's going to be money well spent.
Yeah.
And even though that's not the best way to look at it because music is music, it doesn't need to be validated by mass approval.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it makes sense. And so we're working on building all those numbers up so that we can make some bigger moves that people will, as the numbers get bigger, people respond to us better. People take us more seriously. And one of the ways that we do that is we do this running thing called Damn Son Remixes where we take an artist and we get everyone on the label to remix them. And then we approach a bunch of guest people who are not on the label to remix them as well. And it works because the artist gets all this extra exposure because he's getting 15, 16 other beat makers to remix his stuff. And all their fan bases are going to hear about, well, who's this guy you remixed? I've never heard of him. Or who's this girl you remixed? I've never heard of her. But we also get to piggyback off that artist because they may already have an established fan base.
Yeah.
And then we get to piggyback off all the people that are doing the remixes. So this next one we're doing is by a guy, his name's Filibusta, and he's from St. Louis, from the Midwest. He makes kind of like glitch hop bass music. And he's just kind of transitioned into the whole full-time music thing. He's on a bunch of festivals, and he's definitely on the up and up. We brought him out to play Basic Thursday, made friends with him, and we approached him with the idea, and he gave us a bunch of stems. So then I went out, and I went around. I got everyone on the label, obviously, to remix, because that's easy for me to get them to do it. They're on the label. They're down. So I immediately get like 10 remixes that way. And then I go out, and I start approaching people. Hey, have you heard of this guy, Filibuster? Have you heard of our label? And just mass approaching people. And most people say, no, you're not worth my time. I don't have time to do a remix for you. But I try to approach the people who are the most established that will still respond to me. Because the point is I want to maximize everyone's exposure. So you have this guy, Filibuster, he's got 12,000 likes on Facebook, maybe 8,000 on SoundCloud, people that we can get exposed to by working with him. Then he's stoked because I went out and found all these other people that are equally if not more established than him. So then when we put this remix EP out, you get all of these cross-sectioning of fans because he's going to put out, hey, this label did a remix EP for me, check it out. All his connections are going to hear about it. And then all the guest remixers, they're going to say, I did a remix for this guy and for this label, check it out. And so we get put in front of as many people as we possibly can. And then and then our little gimmick is we require them to like our Facebook page to download the EP. And so each artist, the artist getting remixed, he gets exposed to a bunch of different people. All the guest artists get exposed to a bunch of different people, and we get exposed. So it's kind of a win-win-win. And we're going to be doing a lot more of those. We already have 3 or 4 more in the works, This one's going to be coming out in probably like 3 or 4 weeks. I'm just waiting for a couple more submissions, and we're going to do some marketing for it, and we're going to release it in a couple weeks. And it's going to be a running thing that we do. Hopefully, like every 2 months, we put out one where we just get a bunch of people together and we all remix the same person, and everyone gets some exposure out of it.
Anything else you want to add? I appreciate you coming on the show, and I appreciate you sharing your story. I mean, it's really fascinating. I mean, again, a whole different culture than I'm part of, but I mean, at the same time, I checked out some of the music, and I dig it. It's definitely interesting. But anything else you want to add, or
no? I just
or mention, or
no, just keep on the lookout for us.
The website, I'll put all the website on the iamsaltlake.com podcast show notes, but feel free to mention them now in case somebody's not in front of a computer. It's
www.damsunmusic.com.
And that's dam with an N, right?
DAMN.
Yeah. Not like a beaver dam or something.
I think the Facebook URL is just, facebook.com/damsun. We have a YouTube channel. We're working on, getting stuff.
Okay. You do have a YouTube channel then.
And so there's a bunch of stuff in the works, and
are you on Twitter or no?
Yes, we're on Twitter as well.
What's your Twitter name? Is it Damsun?
Dam_sun_, I believe.
All right, because I'm a big fan of Twitter. I don't know if we follow each other on Twitter, but
we will. The Omar, the other owner, he does all our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. He's the social. That's kind of his responsibility. He does a great job. Like, he's growing our. So hit him up. He'll respond. He'll follow you back. We just support people what they do, and I think. The last thing I want to say is I wish everyone would do the same thing, because my philosophy is if you help enough people get what they want, you get what you want. Karma just comes back to you.
Absolutely.
And so, the last thing I'd say is I hope Salt Lake does more of that.
Yeah.
Just everyone support each other, and we're all going to get what we want.
I love it. And we'll end on that note. Everybody support everybody. Buy local, shop local, and support the local is what I say,
Yep.
So, all right. Well, thanks a lot. And, down the road, we'll bring you back on, catch up. And seriously, any of you, the artists, musicians, or anything on your label, send them my way or give me their contact information so I can get in touch with them.
I'll send it all over in one bulk email, and I'll tell them that you're interested, and maybe you can get 2 on at a time.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Talk music. So, excellent. Thank you so much.
Many thanks goes out to Kade from Damsun for coming on the podcast and sharing the story, sharing a little bit about himself, the label, the artists involved. Again, you can go to iamsaltlake.com/episode 63 for all the show notes for this episode, so that way you can link up with them and link up with all of the information that you need to know to get in touch with Damsun Music. Really great project going on here in the area. Please support them and let them know you heard the interview on the I Am Salt Lake podcast. Really quickly, a couple of events coming up that I want to talk about. The first event I want to mention is the Jane Jacobs Walk. It's part of the Open Streets event going on May 4th. That's this upcoming Saturday. This is the Jane Jacobs Walk, though. You can find out all the information at janejacobswalk.org. It starts at 11:45, goes to about 1:30. Meet at Cafe de Bola, 249 East, 400 South, and the end is at the Intermodal Hub on 600 West and 300 South. Start at the cafe and loosely follow the Open Streets route, which will close 300 South from 600 West to 200 East to all automobile traffic. On May the 4th, we will make a stop by the City Library, Public Safety Building, and City and County Building. We'll talk about the urban design and the benefits of mid-block streets. As we walk down 300 South, they will also explain the Green Bike Program, and we'll be giving out a promo code to rent the bike for free on the day of the walk. Really great deal. So you're going to want to definitely come for that reason. They're going to finish up at the Intermodal Hub on 300 South and 600 West. From there, you can rent a green bike with the promo code, again, absolutely free, and attend the Open Streets events, the Live Green Festival at the library, and the Tour de Bruta at the Gallivan Center. This event is open to everyone and will be accessible to wheelchairs, bicycles, seniors, and children. We're going to be taking pictures, posting them on Instagram. Make sure you're following me on Instagram. It's just Chris Hollifield. I'm going to be producing a lot more photos this summer of our beautiful city. I know I've been lacking in that department, but you're going to want to make sure to follow me on Instagram. That way you don't miss any of my photos. Also on May the 17th is our 1-year anniversary photo walk of the Insta Walk SLC. We're meeting at 7 o'clock at the Gallivan Center downtown, and we're going to walk around downtown and take pictures with hopefully a lot of the old school people that came out to the first ever Insta Walk SLC that I was part of and I helped organize. Hopefully they come out and we're going to just take pictures of the city, post them on Instagram. Make sure you're following me on Facebook and Twitter. That way you can get all the up-to-date information about that. It's just facebook.com/IamSaltLake and then Twitter @IamSaltLake. Again, voicemail line 385-202-5926. Leave an iTunes review for the podcast. That really helps boost our ratings. If you just go to IamSaltLake.com/iTunes, that will take you where you need to go. I think that's going to about do it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Kade from Damn Son. Get involved with one of these photo walks. Get involved with Salt Lake City. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.